So if you have the first pick in your 2022 fantasy football draft, you've came to the right place because we're going to go through a full in-depth analysis on my draft strategy, which I believe is the right draft strategy. It's not like I'm taking the exact same players every single time. I just have an overall blueprint for what I want to do, and I'm going to share that with you today. It's also just going to be a cool ESPN mock draft where we talk about players and their ceilings and floors and stuff like that. So getting started here at this position, it's very easily in a way Jonathan Taylor. With the first overall pick, it's really I look for consistency, floor, and ceiling. And Jonathan Taylor is insanely consistent last year, has a very high floor and a very high ceiling. You have someone like that with Cooper Kupp at the wide receiver position, but the running back position is a lot more valuable than the wide receiver position at the top of the draft, and that's literally undisputable. If you look at the three components for Christian McCaffrey, consistency, floor, ceiling, you see ceiling, absolutely there. Consistency, when healthy, there. Floor, yeah, we haven't seen a consistent floor in the past 2 or 3 years, and with Jonathan Taylor, he's in the third year of his career. He is way younger than Christian McCaffrey, and he has the floor. We don't know if, we can't anticipate any sort of floor for Christian McCaffrey based on the past couple seasons. Jonathan Taylor is also running behind a better offensive line. Or I know he's not used in the pass game as much as we'd want to, but guys, don't overthink this. The first pick is Jonathan Taylor. Now, I think right here is where this first tier of running backs ends at Najee. Najee is one of my favorite players in the draft this year. I don't care, he's in Mexico, like zooming in on females on his IG Live. It is weird, but on the football field, I don't really have any concerns of his work ethic. So I think that's when it ends. I think Dalvin Cook starts the second tier of running backs, but when we pick with the first pick, we're not going to be picking until this tier of running backs. And by then, usually James Conner and Javonte Williams and usually Aaron Jones are off, and you're left with this Cam Akers tier. So when we get to that pick, I will show you guys what my strategy is with that. Debo's not going to be used in the run game as much, but he's still Debo Samuel, so you can't really go wrong. I'm staying away from Tyreek Hill this year. Just overall, I think there's a lot better options on the board. Specifically because I think it's pretty much impossible for Tyreek Hill to have a better season than what he did in KC. I mean, the way Tyreek's gonna get the ball mostly this year is just by screen passes from Tua. Like you're gonna see way less bombs down the field. It's just not gonna happen as much, especially with Tua, and also another speedster in Jalen Waddle there. Swift, if you can get Swift at that, you're not gonna be able to get Swift at pick 24, but if you can, snag him. I love CD. I love Leonard Fournette, but you're not going to be able to get Leonard Fournette. So it's really tough for us first pickers, you know? You get the best player in fantasy, but now you have to, see this great tier of running backs kind of go away. But I have a couple players in mind that will negate the sense of loss. With our pick coming up, I'll just start sharing my strategy. You're going to want to go, if you can, I am all in on Saquon Barkley this year. Now look, don't look at me like I'm crazy. Let me explain. Saquon Barkley in the first year of his career looked like he could be one of the greatest running backs of all time. And he's just been riddled by injuries. And we saw him have some breakout games last year. This year, it is his offense. They have an improved offensive line. I am all in on the fact that if Saquon can stay somewhat healthy, he will have a absolutely amazing season. Starting off the year, he had some lingering injuries. This game, this kind of the first, almost half of the season, or more than half of the season, he had very bad injury concerns. But as he came back from that injury, we saw him have some good games and some great gameplay. So with a whole season, the value and the usage rate of Saquon Barkley is so high, and obviously fantasy football, especially at the running back position, is all about volume. So if I could take someone who has the volume, no one else in the running back room competing with him, like, look, Javonte Williams has a committee, Cam Akers look terrible. David Montgomery is not used in the same way Saquon Barkley is used. He's not valued as much. He's not the volume. Obviously, obviously David Montgomery's the main running back there. But for a guy like Saquon Barkley to be valued in the passing game, to have the ceiling, we know what his ceiling is, and we've seen it recently. I'm all in, and to see those sparks last year, I am all in on Saquon Barkley as a running back too, because now you have two players who are the star of their offense with your first two picks. Now here with the players on the board for a while, I was one of the guys that was like, hey, let's take Mark Andrews or Tyreek Hill. Or sorry, let's take Mark Andrews or Travis Kelce. And then I started looking down the board and I realized, you know what? This is a position where I would wait on tight end and I would take a receiver. I like Javonte Williams, but his ceiling is so limited with Melvin Gordon there. So I love any of these three receivers right here: T. Higgins, Keenan Allen, Mike Evans. I'm gonna end up going with Mike Evans here because I think that Chris Godwin, I believe he'll be back maybe by week 3, and even then he'll be coming off of an ACL injury. Mike Evans has gone over 1,000 yards every single season of his career. He might be the safest pick. You take maybe a little bit of a risk with Saquon Barkley. I personally think he'll have a great season. So the thing with T. Higgins, I love T. Higgins, but he's a wide receiver too. Keenan Allen, he's great, but if you just saw last year, his ceiling isn't as high as we'd wanted. I mean, his season high was 22, and he had some good games, but overall consistent, overall a wide receiver, a high end wide receiver too. I think Mike Evans has that just clear cut wide receiver 1 potential. I mean, he had a monster season last year, and nothing tells me that that'll stop this year. I mean, he's been the most consistent wide receiver, or just by yardage and touchdown. He's obviously a touchdown hauler. So I feel pretty safe with Mike Evans as my wide receiver 1. And then this tier, man, I'm staying away from Jalen Waddle as my wide receiver 1 just because, 1, it's all about quarterback play, and 2, hasn't proven yet. You're also a wide receiver 2 for Jalen Waddle. DJ Moore, Sam Darnold, nothing else to say. And Michael Pittman Jr., I'm in love with. I love Michael Pittman Jr. this year. He was showered with targets last year. And with Matt Ryan coming in, they already have a good report we've heard from camp. If I didn't have Jonathan Taylor on my team, I mean, like, look, you could still technically live with Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor, but it's more of a risk because now you're betting on that offense a little bit too much. But yeah, Michael Pittman is going to have an insane season this year. I'm so high on Michael Pittman. I love Terry McLaurin this year. Maybe not as much as a wide receiver 1, just based off of the production and the inconsistency, but the talent is there. We all know that. Not a fan of Deontay this year. I think Big Ben kind of threw to him a lot because they just run a bunch of slants and like 6-yard outs and ins for Deontay just so Ben can just get rid of the ball. Or they just threw him on like a go. So it's like, I think with Trubisky and now a quarterback who's not falling to the floor any second, you also bring in Pickens, so you have more wide receiver competition. I think he'll still be good, but I'm just not as high on him as I was last year. Looking at the board right here, Breece Hall is really good, and he's really talented, but I think people are underrating that Michael Carter had a phenomenal rookie season, and this will be more of a committee than people think. I'm not ready to take, 1, he's in a terrible offense, 2, he has Michael Carter right next to him. I'm a lot more low on Breece Hall than other people are. So I'm personally not a Breece Hall guy this year, especially in the 4th round. So I'm staying away from Breece Hall. I'm also staying away from quarterback this early. God damn, I'm staying away from DK Metcalf. I can't preach that enough. Brandon Cooks, I like Brandon Cooks. I mean, he's always consistent. He always has 90 receptions every single season. Davis Mills is a promising quarterback, so I'm high on Brandon Cooks, but I'm higher on 2 other players here. One of them being Travis Etienne, who I'm going to take here if I can. James Robinson, coming off a torn Achilles, he's not going to be available for the first at least 4 or 5 weeks. And who else is there? Absolutely nobody. It's Travis Etienne's offense. He had a great connection at Clemson with Trevor Lawrence, who's obviously there now, and he's great in the passing game. For a full PPR system, you have a workhorse running back, and you have a pass-catching dynamic god in Travis Etienne, who we know he was a first-round pick. He's going to be inevitably utilized. I think there's such a high ceiling and a very, very high floor for a guy like Travis Etienne. And having 3 superstar running backs early, in my opinion, that's how high I am on Travis Etienne. I am very with that, so I'm going to go with Travis Etienne here. Again, the offense and the volume It's all about volume, guys. He's going to have the offense to himself. It's going to be a lot of checkdowns. It's going to be a lot of just running the ball with Travis Etienne. And the fact that he wasn't able to be utilized last year just goes to show that this year is his season, especially with James Robinson out. And even when he comes back, James Robinson's not going to be fully in that offense. So now here I'm going receiver. Patrick Mahomes is here, but I'm not going quarterback that early. There's a guy like Brandon Cooks, Amon-Ra St. Brown. But personally, I love all these guys on this board, but I like Marquise Brown a little bit more than them. Well, look, Brandon Cooks is a great pick this year. A lot of people hate on him. Amon-Ra's a great pick. I love Mooney this year. I love these two this year. I like Michael Thomas this year. I like Hunter Renfrow. But the reason Marquise Brown sticks out a little to me is, one, last year, with a more competitive pass catching room, just because we want to include Mark Andrews, he was showered with targets. And I mean, he had 91 receptions. He had 91 receptions last year, 145 targets. Now he comes into a wide receiver room without DeAndre Hopkins for the first 6 weeks. And he has, Zach Ertz. And he already has a great rapport with Kyler Murray as he played college ball with him. Marquise Brown is a very talented receiver. He's one of the most talented receivers in the league. And he's easily going to be showered with targets this year. And it's not even a question. As you can see, my draft strategy is, besides Saquon, is high floor type guys. I still think Saquon has a high floor, but obviously he's the riskiest pick out of all of them. But back to Marquise Brown, he's a high floor type of guy, high ceiling. I see a lot of 6 for 104 and a touchdown, like 7 for 129, like a lot of those games for him, because it's inevitable that he's going to have crazy volume, crazy target share for the first at least 6 weeks of the season. And even after that, he's Marquise Brown. He's one of the most talented receivers in the NFL. He already has a great resume with Kyler Murray. It's not going to go away now that he's in this Cliff Kingsbury offense. He's going to be an amazing PPR play, and I'm just telling you, they're going to do a lot with him, and they traded a first round pick for him for a reason. So I love Marquise Brown this year, and the fact that he already has a connection with Kyler just makes it even better. And the fact that he's going to be the wide receiver 1 for at least the first 6 weeks inevitably makes that even better in a high-powered, high-passing Cardinals offense. Now, for me, tight end with the number 1 overall pick is really, really tricky. I, for a while, was debating going Mark Andrews and Kelsey. I was debating really taking JT, Saquon, or a guy like Saquon, and then Andrews, and then waiting on receiver. But I kind of realized that I believe I kind of got lower and lower on Kelsey and Andrews, and I believe their value's too high. One, Andrews had his best games without Lamar Jackson last year, which is a little bit concerning. Obviously, he's still, I believe, the tight end 1. I don't think he should be a second-round pick due to the fact that he only averaged like about 13 to 15 points per game with Lamar Jackson, and without Lamar Jackson is when he really scribes. So that's a little bit too concerning for me to take him with my second or third round pick. Then you look at a guy like Travis Kelce. I am a little bit low on Travis Kelce this year, and here's why. 1, 33 years old. Everybody thinks, oh, Patrick Mahomes is just going to look to target him every single play. It's one thing to look. It's one thing to get doubled every single play. Now that you don't have to worry about Tyreek Hill, defenses are going to focus so much on Travis Kelce. And we've seen this in the past. When Tyreek Hill is out, Travis Kelce is double teamed, is watched so much, and it's very hard for Patrick Mahomes to get him the ball. So as a old tight end having to deal with this all season, I don't see him being better than he was without Tyreek Hill. And I see guys like Juju and Sky Moore and Mecole Hardman prospering more than Travis Kelce would, because defenses can be so intact on Travis Kelce now that they don't have to worry about a guy like Tyreek Hill. So I see Mahomes looking for Travis, and especially, obviously, he would get showered with targets, but it's going to be hard to target him because he's going to be double teamed so much, and he'll have to deal with a lot more now that Tyreek Hill is gone. So that's why I kind of ruled out both of them. I wouldn't recommend taking one of those tight ends with your first 2 or 3 picks. At first I was, and then I kind of thought about it, and I realized the downsides to that. So the tight end position is weird now, because now you look at the available tight ends. A guy like TJ Hawkinson, I am really not high on. Last year he wasn't very good, and now they add more to this offense. I don't really think that he has a very high ceiling or high floor. But a guy like Dallas Goddard, I love. And here's why I like. I mean, and we'll talk about the tight ends later, but I just wanted to cover my whole spiel on tight ends here. So now we're almost back on the clock, and obviously this is wide receiver city right here. There's a lot of people that I like. One of them being Gabriel Davis, one of them being Rashad. I love Rashad Bateman this year. I like Juju this year. I love Traylon Burks. There's a lot of great receivers, and this is why I'm telling you to take running back early, because receivers, as you've probably heard if you've been watching or doing mock drafts, receivers this late are evidently so consistently here. Did Kyler go? Kyler went, and that is very unfortunate, because if I'm after this guy, I would have taken Kyler and paired him with Marquise Brown, and that would have been money. We're on the clock here. I have two good wide receivers. I'm going to take a wide receiver here, and it's really hard to decide between a guy like Gabriel Davis or really Rashad Bateman or Drake London. It's really between those three right now. Gabriel Davis had Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders both leave that offense. We saw a 4-touchdown game in the NFC Championship last year. We know that he has a lot in the tank. He's a young player, and him next to Diggs is going to be amazing next year. You also have a guy like Drake London and Rashad Bateman. I love all three of them. I'm going Gabriel Davis. I love Rashad Bateman, but it's inevitable that they're probably going to bring someone else in, and he was a little bit inconsistent next year. Now, if we look at the running backs available on the board, I don't really like a lot of them. I mean, I love Dylan and Tony Pollard, but I could probably get them in the later rounds. Singletary, I'm scared with James Cook there. I like these guys on the board. I love Drake London as well. But I'm all in on Jalen Hurts this year. And I was debating kind of waiting on quarterback till like literally the 14th round and getting a guy like Trey Lance. But if I can get a guy like Jalen Hurts right here, I'm going to go take that. Again, I love Drake London. I'm kind of staying away from Elijah Moore with Garrett Wilson there. But I love a lot of these receivers. But the rushing upside of Jalen Hurts in a full PPR, or I guess any league, is just so there. And now they hit, and now with a superstar receiver like AJ Brown, the rushing upside is there so much more, because they can't focus in solely on Hurts' running game, because they're gonna have to worry about one of the best receivers on the outside. So Jalen Hurts he gets one, a better receiver, and two, his rushing upside gets up, and also it's just another year in the league. It's his first year, he just passed his first year starting. He's more polished. He's more seasoned as a quarterback. So I love Jalen Hurts this year as a quarterback. And fantasy, he's just a god. I mean, even if you look at his stats last year, I mean, like, multiple games over 25, 23. He's a great fantasy quarterback, and he's, again, more adjusted to the NFL. He's that guy. He's that guy. And now I like guys like Devontae Smith and Traylon Burks. It's just there's so many great receivers here, and you can only choose a couple. So I selected Gabriel Davis, and I'm happy with the pick. So, and guys like Brandon Ayuk, like these are so many great receivers down here. It's actually crazy. So right now Dallas Goedert is still here, but the flaw with this entire strategy is tight end looks a little thin, but there's no need to. And see my computer's lagging now. Not a big need to worry, because you have a guy like Dawson Knox here. I love Dawson Knox this year. He was a tight end 11 last year, and I think he was amazing last year. He has great touchdown upside, and he had multiple games over 15 points. And now with less reception competition in Buffalo, I think if you're gonna wait on tight end, Dawson Knox is a perfect pick here. And as you just saw, Dallas Goedert went. So now I'm in a bit of a pickle here when it comes to the tight end position, and we'll worry about that right now. So look, off the board, we have three great running backs. I could use some more. Rashad Penny, I think it's Kenneth Walker's real. I mean, look, Rashad Penny is great, and he's so injury prone. I like the upside there, but I do like Brandon Ayuk as well. See, I already have a receiver off the bench, and running backs obviously way thinner. Michael Carter, yeah, but his ceiling is really capped. It's tough here. I'm going to end up going with Rashad Penny just because of how insane he was last year when he was on the field, and Chris Carson's pretty much out of the offense, so he still has a higher ceiling than we think really. And now at the tight end position, I would love to take Zach Ertz. I mean, he was showered with targets last year. Um, and really, without me taking Marquise Brown, I would love to take Zach Ertz. But here, again, I'm in love with Dawson Knox. I know I have Gabriel Davis, but I'm okay with taking Dawson Knox here as my tight end. I think he's going to be showered with targets again this year. He's still young, and he had kind of a breakout season last year. I think he's going to have another breakout season this year, especially towards that latter half of the season. I know the receptions weren't, amazing, but he had some 7 receptions, some 5 reception game, and he's always looked out in the end zone. And you see, he had 9 targets, 10 targets, 8 targets. Like, he gets targets, and especially in a high, obviously Josh Allen slings it, and they want him to sling it. Sean McDermott wants him slinging it. They're not a running offense. So Dawson Knox, especially at this point in the draft, if you're getting a tight end, is inevitably going to be showered with targets. So I think he's a good high floor player, and obviously he's not going to be Mr. Consistent. But at this point, if you're taking a tight end, then a guy like Dawson Knox is a good pick. Other guys I love down the board, James Cook. I know I keep talking about these Bills, but the Bills spent a second round pick on James Cook. Next to Devin Singletary, I think he's going to be utilized. Inevitably, Zach Moss is not even a problem anymore. Zach Moss sucks. Like, if we're being honest, Zach Moss is bad at football. Well, in the NFL. I mean, I guess he's probably, like, not in the 0.00000001 percentile of football players when it comes to skill because he's in the NFL. Okay, never mind. That doesn't matter. Quarterbacks right here, like a strategy I go for if I don't have Hurts available is I wait and I take Trey Lance. Because personally, I think Trey Lance is going to have a breakout season. I'm still going to try to get Trey Lance on my roster. I think Trey Lance, I just loved seeing him play last year, and I think his rushing upside is there. If you can't tell, I love rushing quarterbacks. I think they have the highest floor and a very high ceiling. Derek Carr is just known not the best fantasy quarterback. He's a good quarterback, and he has Devontae Adams there, but he's just not the best fantasy quarterback. I mean, he has a lot of dud games. So I go for high potential quarterbacks with a good enough floor, and guys like Jalen Hurts and Trey Lance. So yeah, that's kind of my spiel on the quarterback position there. But yeah, if I can, heading into round 11, I'm gonna try to get a guy like James Cook or other receivers on the board. Do I still have Allen Lazard there? I really love Allen Lazard this year, so if y'all can snag Allen Lazard in the late rounds, I'm doing that as well. I like Michael Gallup. James Williams is a good pick. I mean, but with Jared Goff there, not really. There's a lot of good players here, so we're gonna end up picking right here. So now if you're thinking, oh, let's take another tight end, I might snag a David Njoku like later in the draft, or maybe an Austin Hooper. But that's a very much of a reach. But yeah, like guys like Noah Fant. I don't like Noah Fant. Hunter Henry's getting up there in age, and he has Jonnu Smith in his tight end room. But we saw him succeed last year, so it's like, we'll see. We're not going to go tight end here, though. I'd like to take a receiver. I like Sky Moore. I love Jarvis Landry this year. I think Baker was kind of holding him back. I think he still has a little bit left in the tank. And when you have a slinger like Jameis Winston and Michael Thomas still kind of out, I don't know. It's a tough pick here. I'm probably going to go with Tim Patrick. I love Tim Patrick. Especially the Russell Wilson. All Broncos receivers just get their everything improved. Running backs on the board still. That brings up a good. I'm going to take Nyheim Hines. If you have Jonathan Taylor, your first pick, you need to handcuff. So I was actually going to forget about that. But luckily, Nyheim Hines came to the rescue. So yeah, make sure to handcuff. I know Nyheim Hines, if Jonathan Taylor is injured, God forbid, knock on wood, Nyheim Hines obviously wouldn't be the power back to replace him. I actually don't know who that would be right now. But yeah, Nyheim Hines is still obviously Nyheim Hines. He's pass catching, athletic running back. So if Taylor is injured, which we hope won't happen, he will get more, like inevitably more run, more targets, more volume. So make sure to handcuff your first overall pick, like anybody. Like it doesn't even matter. So now we're going to see Trey Lance go. I'm sad about that. I mean, most people are on auto now because most people don't stay this late in mock drafts. But I like Trey Lance. But when you have Jalen Hurts, you got to feel happy. I mean, you don't need a backup quarterback, really. So, but Trey Lance is an exception. I think he's going to have a breakout season. So if you want to wait and just take more skill positions and wait for Trey Lance, I'm all for that. I just think Jalen Hurts is a safe pick, but if you want to wait for Trey Lance, go ahead and do that. I mean, by all means. I think Trey Lance is a monster, and I think he's going to have a monster season. Now, when you look at tight ends, I do not mind a guy like a Cole Kmet. I mean, he didn't really produce that much that season. I mean, he had some flashes, and we don't know how he'll be with Justin Fields. He's still young. But a guy like Logan Thomas I'm looking for, because when he's on the field, we saw him finish very, very high a couple years ago, and he just has been injured. And even when he played last year, he finished with more than 12 fantasy points a lot. So it's like you have a better quarterback coming in. If Logan Thomas can stay on the field, if I have a late round pick like this, I'll take a guy like Logan Thomas, especially when I don't have the best starting tight end as my pick. Jarvis Landry's an easy pick for me here. I love Jarvis this year. And then I'm going to go with Logan Thomas here. And yeah, that about wraps up my my bench. And then, yeah, I mean, a guy like, I love a guy like Evan McPherson, and we don't really need to go back in. Other guys, I can just list other guys I like. I like guys like Dameon Pierce, because I think the Houston backfield is very much up for grabs, and I think that Dameon Pierce as a young running back could really go and take that and get a lot of carries that that are kind of have to be handed out there. Same exact thing with Tyler. I don't know how to pronounce his name yet, but again, that Atlanta backfield, you have Cordell Patterson, who's obviously the receiving back and he's old. So a guy like Tyler, I need to figure out how to pronounce his last name. Could end up being a guy who gets at least 10 carries a game, and with your last pick, I would go for that. So yeah, if we go through my team here, you got Jalen Hurts, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Mike Evans, Marquise Brown, Dawson Knox, Travis Etienne, and then you have Gabriel Davis, Rashad Penny, Tim Patrick, Nyheim Hines, Jarvis, and Logan Thomas. I love this team just simply based off the fact, one, you have great running back depth. And if you don't have good running back depth or just 3 strong running backs, it's going to be hard for you to succeed in fantasy football this year. I think Saquon's ceiling is very high, and I love Saquon this year. You can disagree with me, but I think there's a really good chance we see a very, very good and rejuvenated Saquon Barkley. Jonathan Taylor. He's going to average at least 25 fantasy points per game for me this year. My receivers. Mike Evans is a very safe pick, especially with Godwin out. You have Brady showering him with targets. Same thing with, okay, so I'll make a pick here. Sure, Rondo Moore. Same thing with Marquise Brown. He will be showered with targets. It's all about targets. When it comes, I'm going to freaking grab Evan McPherson here, because Evan McPherson is the GOAT. It's all about targets, and that's exactly what you get with those top two receivers. And then you see a guy like Travis Etienne. I know Travis Etienne and Saquon Barkley to a lot of, casual fantasy people, and if you are one of those, I'm here to change that. Travis Etienne is going to have a monster season. No James Robinson, and even if he comes back at any point this season, he will not be himself or utilized as that player, or as that workhorse back anymore. Because it's Travis Etienne's a first round pick. He is a amazing pass catching back, and that's what he was in college. So the fact that this is a PPR league and he can do that with Trevor Lawrence, I'm all for that. And I'm all for there being absolutely no competition in the backfield for him. So it's Travis Etienne's backfield. The Jaguars have gotten better as a team. Trevor Lawrence has gotten better as a team. No more Urban Meyer. You got Doug Pearson now, who's an experienced NFL coach and knows that he has to utilize Travis Etienne. Excuse me, and he will be utilized. Definitely. Gabe Davis, Rashad Penny, Tim Patrick. These are all guys who have a lot of potential. And I just like this roster, man. I think guys like Gabriel Davis can break out. And obviously what we saw last year in the playoffs, I just think it doesn't matter. Defenses don't really matter for me. I just stream them. Yeah, I think I have a great team here. So I end up with variations of a team like this every single draft, really, because this is my strategy. You go running back early, and then you take safe receivers who will be showered with targets, because those are the receivers that succeed. And then for me, if you have a guy like Jalen Hurts available, you take him. But if you have Dak available, I would wait to take a guy like Trey Lance or someone in that range. But you could do what you want with that. I love Travis Etienne. Go pick Travis Etienne. I'm all over Travis Etienne. And then I'm all over Saquon. So that's a risk, but those are my guys. So yeah, thank you for watching this mock draft, and I'll see you guys later.